A stalker hides in plain sight, watching every move without being noticed. It might start with innocent messages, admiring glances, or small gifts left at your door, but then something changes. The calls won't stop. The letters turn from harmless to threatening. And one day you realize someone is not just watching you, someone is hunting you. Today we're diving into the creepiest stalker cases that turned real. Stories where obsession escalated into horrifying confrontations. Each case explores the thin line between distant fascination and immediate danger. Stay with me until the end, because one of these stories involves a well-known actress who became the target of a fan so deranged it led to a tragic death that changed anti-stalking laws forever. If you enjoy deep dives into true crime, subscribe now, so you don't miss next Saturday's episode, where we examine the most chilling ransom kidnappings ever recorded, situations so terrifying entire cities were paralyzed by fear. It began in 1984, when Richard Farley, a 36-year-old software engineer in Sunnyvale, California, met his co-worker, Laura Black. At first, he seemed friendly, sending her polite letters and small gifts, but Laura politely declined his advances, hoping he'd lose interest. Instead, he became more determined. Farley's behavior escalated from mild to intrusive. He began following Laura to her home, showing up at her gym and appearing at the restaurant she frequented. She changed her phone number multiple times, but he always found a way to get it. He left endless voicemails, once calling her 60 times in a single week. She pleaded with HR, but there were no strong anti-stalking laws at the time, so little was done. Laura finally filed for a restraining order. That triggered Farley's breaking point. On February 16, 1988, he walked into their workplace with a shotgun, multiple handguns, and over 1,000 rounds of ammunition. 7 people were killed, 4 were wounded, including Laura herself. Miraculously, she survived the gunshot. Farley surrendered after a long standoff, ending one of California's worst workplace shooting rampages. This case changed how companies and courts view workplace harassment. Laura testified that repeated complaints had been ignored until it was too late. Today, her ordeal serves as a stark reminder that a stalker's obsession can rapidly morph into lethal violence, and that the signs of a growing obsession should never be taken lightly. In Westfield, New Jersey, the Broadus family thought they had found their perfect forever home at 657 Boulevard. Picturesque and located in a safe neighborhood, it seemed like an idyllic place to raise their children. But soon after closing on the house, before they even moved in, they received an anonymous letter addressed to the new owners. The letter was chilling. The sender called themselves the Watcher, claiming they had been watching the house for decades, just like their father and grandfather before them. The writer asked unsettling questions. Did the family know the history of the house? Did they know what lay in its walls? The Watcher mentioned personal details, referencing their children by name, and hinting at how they might play in the basement unseen. More letters arrived, each more disturbing. One insinuated that something terrible could happen if they ignored the warnings. Terrified, the Broadus family alerted the police and postponed their move-in date. Investigators looked into neighbors and previous owners, but no conclusive evidence emerged. Public theories ranged from a disgruntled resident to a bizarre prank, yet the letters remained too specific to be random. Eventually, the family put the house back on the market. They never felt safe enough to live there. Even today, the Watcher's true identity is unknown. Was it a mentally disturbed neighbor wanting attention, a vengeful former resident, or something more sinister? The Watcher case remains an unnerving example of how quickly an anonymous letter can destroy the peace of an unsuspecting family, and how the simplest expression of obsession can upend an entire life. For months, a young woman in Washington state felt uneasy in her own home. Food occasionally disappeared from the fridge. Doors were unlocked that she was sure she had secured. At night she heard soft scratching sounds in the walls, as if a rodent was scurrying around. She set traps, but caught nothing. Then, one evening, she heard a distinct muffled cough coming from inside a closet she rarely used. Heart pounding, she opened the closet door. In the corner of the closet was a hidden crawl space leading behind the wall. She shined her flashlight in and caught the reflection of two eyes staring back at her. She screamed and bolted from the room, calling the police immediately. When officers arrived, they discovered a makeshift living space in the hidden crawl space, a sleeping bag, some clothes, and a notebook filled with disturbing observations about the woman's schedule and habits. The intruder was nowhere to be found, but his presence was undeniable. He had been stalking her from inside her own walls, sneaking out to steal food and watching her every move. Though eventually she moved out, the intruder was never definitively identified. This case highlights the terrifying lengths some stalkers will go to, turning the concept of privacy and safety in one's own home into a facade. It remains an unsettling warning that the threat can sometimes be closer than you ever realized. Rebecca Schaeffer was an up-and-coming actress in the late 80s, best known for her role on the sitcom My Sister Sam. Bright and full of potential, she had fans worldwide. But in 1989, a man named Robert John Bardo took that admiration to a deadly extreme. Bardo, who had a history of mental illness, spent months gathering personal information about Rebecca. He wrote letters, tried to contact her agents, and even hired a private investigator to obtain her home address. On July 18th, he arrived at her apartment doorstep in West Hollywood carrying a gun. Rebecca, unaware of any danger, answered the door. He shot her at point-blank range, killing her instantly. This crime stunned Hollywood. It was a harrowing reminder that celebrity status can turn a fan's fixation into lethal action. Schaeffer's murder also prompted lawmakers in California to pass stronger anti-stalking legislation, and it helped pave the way for national guidelines on protecting personal information, especially for public figures. Her tragic death stands as a dire warning of how quickly obsession can escalate when a disturbed individual gains access to private details. Whether it's a co-worker's crush that spirals out of control, a family's dream home invaded by threatening letters, a stranger lurking in the walls, or a fan crossing boundaries to commit a horrific crime, these stories prove that stalking can escalate into violence or terror faster than we'd like to believe. In each case, the victims tried to protect themselves, but the stalker's relentless fixation pushed them to commit acts of intrusion, intimidation, or even murder. The lesson is chilling. If you sense a pattern of watching, following, or obsessive contact, take it seriously. Stalking isn't always a passing fancy. It can become a full-blown threat to life and safety. Which of these cases disturbed you the most? Have you ever felt someone was watching you or crossing a line they shouldn't? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this extended deep dive, subscribe now so you don't miss next Saturday's episode, where we reveal the most chilling ransom kidnappings ever recorded. Situations so terrifying entire communities went on high alert. And always remember, sometimes the scariest thing isn't what lurks outside in the dark. It's who might be watching you without you ever knowing they're there. Thank you for watching. See you in the next investigation.